check, 1, 2.
Go! Curious about real estate? Yes! Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need, get over the fear, and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Hello, everybody. Michael Quarles with the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show, and welcome to podcast episode 291. I'm going to switch it up a little bit today. Was thinking all weekend long about a call that I had on Friday of last week. You may or may not know, but every Friday we do a roundtable call. So we get two of our folks in on a call with me. It is geared to what's going right and geared to what's going wrong in our lives as real estate investors and how we can help each other modify the wrong and magnify the right. And I wanted to share the call. I thought it was a pretty interesting call, and it has a lot of valuable information. It's a little longer than normal, but sit back, enjoy. If it helps, that's what the goal is. We'll talk to you soon. Here we go. Let's unmute our participants.
All right, let's go. I'm going to start off with Mr. Quayle. So Mr. Quayle and Mr. Connors are our guest speakers today. A couple of terrific guys and very fantastic business models. It's going to be a fun call.
Very good.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Always like
Good morning, Michael.
Order. So, and I do know my ABCs backwards. So I'm going to pick Craig first. Introduce yourself, sir.
Well, Michael, I am a real estate investor in San Diego, California, who is virtual wholesaling in Columbus, Ohio.
Why'd you pick Ohio?
A couple of reasons. Number one, I decided that I wanted to do virtual wholesaling in the Midwest as it is a more stable market. It's also not a market that is really high on the investor radar screen. I mean, you have your big markets like Dallas, Houston, Denver, Indianapolis, where there's a lot of activity, a lot of focus, less so in Ohio, but a lot of good trends in terms of the stats that support our business. And I chose Columbus because I like the secondary or tertiary markets because I can build a big brand there and then expand from that base.
And what's been the positive so far?
I think the positive has been there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in Columbus, and I've only found a small portion of it. And I see Columbus being the state capital and being a pretty good market in itself to be a good jumping off point for markets like Cincinnati and Dayton and Toledo.
Okay. And what's been the negative so far?
Well, I've had, as you know, one experience where I teamed up with a partner in the marketplace, an existing wholesaler, and that didn't necessarily pan out quite the way I'd hoped. So we kind of rejiggered my business model, and I took total control over all of my deals from lead to closing. And that's been an interesting process to build the team in the marketplace and still something that needs to be developed and strengthened.
I'm always curious about the team model and why folks do it. That's one of the questions I not get a lot, but I do get. What do you think about a team, in the real estate investment business? I have my own personal opinion. But why did you decide originally to go into the business with a team model?
My original introduction to virtual wholesaling was built around that model. The premise being that we would do the marketing, we would generate the leads, we would pre-qualify the leads, and then we would partner with a wholesaler in the market who could go out and meet with sellers, as well as to personally view the property and assess its condition. And we would split the deals based upon, those opportunities. And that made a lot of sense to me because I was a little bit uncomfortable with putting properties under contract and taking on risk in markets where I wasn't familiar with the market. I didn't really know it. And so there was a certain measure of comfort in working with somebody who did, somebody who was there, somebody who already had existing buyers, that already had a relationship with a title company. So those are the things that pointed us in that direction.
Was that comfort real or imaginary?
I think part of it was real. At the onset, it worked very well. We had a very cooperative relationship, and then the difficulty came in communication, because it was difficult to get a hold of the partner to find out where we stood on some of these transactions, and so ultimately it didn't end particularly well.
Right. I find at times they're very difficult to manage, and probably because I'm a type A personality, and that I think my way is always the best way, even when I'm wrong. So, but not everybody has my personality flaw. So I would find a team atmosphere difficult for me, because I'm just a bulldozer. And if someone isn't like-minded, I don't have any need for it from an equal perspective. If I'm going to share profits with someone, which is different than a team member. There's someone who's not sharing in profitability, although they're sharing in a portion of the profitability in a paycheck, to me is different. Have you moved to now, instead of having a team partner, to a team member?
Well, yes. I count you and the call center as one of my team members, because that's a huge benefit in my having restructured my approach to the market. And I thank you for that. I remember when the partnership was being ended, and I texted you at one point and I said, well, that's coming to a close. And you responded, good. Glad to hear it. And, you were absolutely right, because my taking control over all aspects of the business has been a challenge to get it all set up and put into play. But it is certainly better than trying to coordinate with somebody and, not being able to communicate effectively or coordinate effectively.
I'm not saying it doesn't work in every situation. I look at the team owner relationship, and rarely do I find one that is equal. Now, there's a difference between, in my opinion anyway, between a team member who may share in profit because they're bringing the money to the table. Well, if that's their only job is, I need X dollars today, they're not really a partner, because that's their only job. They're not out there trying to capture deals or sell deals. But short of that, I'd have a hard time doing it personally. And I always believe in the adage that the person that cuts their own firewood's twice warmed. And there's something about that concept for me that I like a lot. I don't ever need a crutch. Did you find that having a team partner was a crutch at any time?
Oh, absolutely. Having the wholesale partner in the marketplace, definitely a crutch. It helped me to avoid getting on the phone and doing the work myself. Right. I mean, I had a full-time VA who was doing the quasi Ryan role, and I later brought on a full-time VA to do the Alex role, and I could avoid having to talk to sellers at all myself. Sure. And that was a crutch.
Right.
And then also I could hold the wholesaler accountable for when deals weren't getting done quickly enough, or there were issues with the deal and they weren't getting resolved. I could point the finger at him instead of pointing the finger back at myself, saying, well, what are you doing to contributing to resolve this problem?
There is that saying that whenever you point your finger at someone, 4 is pointing back at yourself. So I think
exactly. So, I mean, by deconstructing that scenario and committing myself fully and completely to your system, I've learned a tremendous amount. I've learned tons about the whole process and different scenarios that you have to navigate to get some of these deals done. And it's been a very worthwhile transformation. It's still underway. The fruit of that effort is, about ready to drop from the tree.
Perfect. I think one of the most beautiful things about the real estate investment business and the knowledge that we learn from it is that once you learn that knowledge and you have it, you'll never lose it. I guess you can become ill and lose it that way. It never goes away. And it's not age dependent. It's not physical dependent. It's not sex dependent or nationality dependent or anything like that. So you can now go to any city in the country as long as you've done your due diligence on that city and pull some fruit.
Exactly.
Thanks for sharing. I'm going to ask Jeff that same question. Jeff, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us about yourself. What's been working?
Well, I'm a a real estate developer here in the Las Vegas area. I'm working on this part-time. I have previously been doing some buy and hold. I was the investor that I'm now trying to sell to as a wholesaler. I had a little extra money, got with a real estate agent, and acquired a few properties. As you know, I recently moved back to the Las Vegas area. I've been gone for about 5 years. Started my business before I relocated using the Alex system. Was able to get a fish on the line right out of the gate. Closed my first deal virtual. That went, unbelievably smooth and well. And now I'm trying to repeat the process. I'm actually, pardon me if there's some background noise, I'm on my way down to get a house under contract this morning. But
that's just not fair, by the way.
Yeah, I'm now, and there's a little bit more to that. I'm going a little off the reservation as far as your recommended technique, but I've never actually gone down and met a seller because I did the first one virtual. I've never met a seller and gone through that negotiating process. So I might end up getting this one. I think there's a reasonable chance I'll get this one under contract, but I'm doing it more for the experience of going down. I don't know if I'm going to have any nervousness, but if I stumble a little bit, I'd rather do it on one that's, not really a good chance of being a deal, one that's, a fair chance of, a possible chance of being a deal, just to get the experience and get it out of the way, become more familiar, more confident with, doing my 6-packs, speaking to sellers in person, going through, doing the inspection on the house, being familiar with, the paperwork and marking things down appropriately and going through that initial renegotiation based on all that information. So,
are you nervous?
No, not at all.
Very good. Do me a favor.
Yep.
Actually, do yourself a favor.
Okay.
Don't put doubt words into what you do on a daily basis, because anytime that you put doubt that you don't have to do it, there may be a percentage that I may not get it done. It may not work. Then you're being too comfortable.
I'm trying not to brag. I'm going to get the house under contract.
Okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with knocking something out. I might win the fight. No, I'm going to win the fight.
Right.
And there is an attitude difference. People want leaders. So the seller absolutely wants to sell you the house. It's mind-boggling that we sometimes don't think that when we go out there to knock on the door, step back 6 feet, look up the street, and say, "Thank you for inviting me out to buy your house. Is where I'm parked okay." The other thing, there's some things that are going to happen inside of the conversation that are telling. One of the things is the first time they ask you if you'd like to have something to drink, please get your contract out and have them sign it, because that's them telling you, I'm satisfied with what you've said so far and I'm comfortable and confident that you'll perform at the level I need you to perform at. The other is, don't become their friend yet. You can create a relationship, but it has to be a business relationship at this point. It can't be a personal relationship, because there could be a time that you have to unwind that relationship, and they're harder to do when they're personal. The reality is this is a business adventure, correct?
Absolutely.
But we want to be nice, because it is our first time or second time or third time. We don't know yet when they're ready, but that bottled water or that cup of coffee or iced tea or beer, and you're liable to get someone that says, "Would you like to have beer?" at 10 o'clock in the morning. Accept it. And, of course, I wouldn't drink the beer. I've popped the top on several to make them feel comfortable and okay with handing me a beer. Go to contract. The other thing is, when you're at the house and you haven't gotten it signed yet, but the contract is filled out on the table, ready to be signed, we have a tendency of communicating too much. So we'll talk and talk and talk and talk. We're liable to say something that'll talk us out of the deal. And so if the contract's filled out, let's be quiet until we get the contract signed, and then we can talk some more if we'd like. So how did you get into real estate investing? Why buy houses for profit?
Real estate is something that's always interested me, and I like the idea of passive income. I like the idea of some sweat equity that I had done in the past, the idea of appreciation, all the different ways that you can make money in real estate. It's, there are a lot of successful people, very wealthy people, at least at some point in their time, were involved with real estate, and it seems fairly tried and true. But mostly it just kind of appeals to me. Something that I enjoy doing. I'm not just chasing a dollar. There's an enormous amount to learn. I'm just having a good time.
Right. Yeah, the learning curve, I don't think it ever ends. It looks more like a straight line eventually, and so we don't see the curve necessarily, but it's still curving. But it is absolutely fun. At some point, I hate saying it to everybody on the call, I think we'll all go into this area, but at some point it won't be fun. because there won't be any challenges left. But that's okay too. When it becomes, when there's not any challenges, then that means we just know what we're doing. And then so we create more challenges by doing, having a bigger platform. If we're doing virtual, having that area, the geographical larger, doing something different, doing another technique, moving into commercial, moving into multifamily, whatever. It does get boring after you've conquered it a little bit. What do you want to add? How can you help those of us that are listening on the call? What's your experience? What wisdom can you share with us?
Well, in wanting to figure out exactly what areas of investing or real estate I wanted to do, I was a listener of Bigger Pockets and listened to probably 100 different podcasts. They have different speakers on there. There's a lot of people doing different niche markets or techniques. And when I heard yours, it really sparked an interest. I decided, after speaking with you and doing some research and listening to your podcast, I decided to give it a try. And I think that one thing that I can kind of credit myself for is I didn't try to reinvent the wheel or outsmart what you've already kind of proven. I think a lot of people are, I'll take most of this and then I'm going to put kind of my own spin on this because even though I've never done this before, I think I've got an idea for a better way of doing this. And to start out, I just literally went through and did things as you recommended. And I had a house under contract 4 days after my first mailing. And I realized that that's not the norm, but it absolutely proved the business model.
Right.
And, I don't have experience in marketing or design and how to design business cards or not business cards, yellow letters or postcards for maximum impact. So why wouldn't I take the advice of somebody who has been doing this for a long time and has done a lot of statistical analysis on what works as far as my market. Go ahead.
Just last week, Cody came to me and he said, Mike, it's been sitting on the shelf now for over a year. Do you think it's time to throw it away? And I said, what are you talking about? He says, the mail that you told us to hold last year because it wasn't working. So I said, come on, show me all this mail. Because, of course, I'm not going to believe that I did something still silly like that. And he takes me back to the rack. And I said to myself, well, that was a great thing because what I did is I experimented. I determined what I thought would work didn't work before I asked someone else to do it as well. I learned fast enough that what I was doing wasn't working, so I didn't have to waste 100% of the dollar. But I'll do that. I'll send out mail and a new mail piece or a new this or a new that. And I'm always amazed that people don't have your stand all the time because I've spent the thousands of dollars testing something. And right now what we're using is not broken. So thank you for at least adhering to the program. You brought up the wheel, and I always have this little story that I like telling, but can you imagine a race car driver, let's say a Formula One car, and picture that tire on the front left. Now picture the tire on a Tour de France bike, because it's a race bike, right? Goes fast, goes down the road. Now picture the tire on the back left of like the Bigfoot truck that jumps cars and buses and stuff and the arena races there. And then picture a motorcycle tire on a motorcycle that races, and that's on the back right. And now try to take all those tires and put them on the same vehicle. It wouldn't work, right? But independently, they work really well. So when they're put on the vehicle that they're meant for, then you can have performance. But when you take a piece of everything and try to put it together, it wobbles down the road pretty silly. And I think that's sometimes what investors do is they try to take an idea here and an idea there and another idea over there, and you just can't do it successfully. You have to stick to one style, learn it. You can manipulate it a little bit to fit both your personality type and your geographical. You surely can't put two different styles together and be highly successful. What do you want to add? What else?
Well, I was so surprised to get chosen to be a guest speaker because I've only been in the program and doing this. I've only been wholesaling for a couple of months now. But I think if nothing else, I'm definitely a poster child for it. Absolutely can work exactly, without having to put your own spin on it. Just going through the steps and doing what you've taught was incredibly prosperous for me. I have an existing tenant in the house, so it's going to be a while before I can sell it. But I ended up getting the house for what we thought was 54 cents on the dollar. and it actually is a 2-2 instead of a 2-1. So I'm having the city go down and make corrections to that, and that puts it in about the 128 to 132 range.
Right.
So after that adjustment, my first property I ended up buying for 42 cents, about 42 cents on the dollar.
So you went from your business model of I'm buying something as a rental,
Right.
to I'm buying it before the guy that would, or the gal that would sell it to me as a rental. I'm buying it the way they do. And in this case, it's still a rental, right? For a while.
Yes.
42 cents is not bad at all.
Yeah. The person that I'm going to sell to, my point was the person that I'm going to sell this house to, because I don't think I'm going to renovate it and fix it. I'm just going to sell it as, and the person I'm going to sell to is going to be somebody like me, somebody that had a little extra money,
right,
and thought, getting a rental would probably be a good idea because I'm making nothing on my money now. I'll get an agent and I'll have them look around for me and find something that looks like it would be a good rental, and something that I maybe put 10 or 15,000 into, fix up a little bit, and then rent out. That's probably who's going to buy my house, and that was me a year ago. And I have a few houses that I did that with, that I look back now and say, well, knowing what I know now, not the best use of my money, but it was a learning experience, and I don't regret doing it because it kind of built up my interest and my contacts and my desire to pursue real estate, which ultimately led me to where I am today.
Right. As long as you didn't lose money, it was a good experience. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go back to Craig.
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through yellow letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started, and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Mr. Connors,
Yes, sir.
what's your wisdom that you want to share with us?
Oh my goodness.
I know you have wisdom because you and I chat. I think one time I was chatting with you and I looked down at my recording and it was like an hour and something long. And, man, you get long-winded.
I know, but I also get long-winded on writing, don't I? Yeah.
Craig, you're not the only one, by the way.
So it's not what wisdom. It's like which of all the pieces of wisdom that I've collected from you and others that do I want to share?
One of the things that I admire about you is that you were on a learning trek for real estate investing. And I'll try to be as kind as I can be, so I won't mention any names, but you had gone through various programs and chatted with various folks about how to become profitable and wealthy through real estate, correct?
Correct.
Tell us about those journeys and what you realized through that process.
Sure. Well, I have been done a lot of studying on a lot of different education platforms, and all of them have been worthwhile in different respects. They all introduced me to different valuable ideas, concepts, techniques, etc. What they didn't do for me was to really help me define how I wanted to execute on my active income pursuits. So just to elaborate a little bit, I first learned about passive investing, and so I purchased rental properties. That's worked out really well. I was also introduced to private lending, and I've done that, and I've refined things, and I've learned a lot over time. But my long-term pursuit has been on building an active income business around wholesaling. And I've spent, I don't know, man, how many hundreds of hours listening to every conceivable podcast and learning from different resources, different coaches. And no one has been able to get me as focused on exactly how I should execute my business until I joined your coaching program. And it comes back to the analogy that you just used with Jeff, because when you and I first spoke, you described the same analogy for what I was doing. I took the CRM from one guy, I took the mailing platform from another guy, I took the VA system from another guy, and I was trying to put them all together, and they were the 4 different tires on the Formula One race car, and it didn't work. So,
But however, independently, they work well if you just stick to what they're meant for.
absolutely, absolutely, they still have a lot of value, and I could see where, I decided, because I had a conversation with Tom, and Tom was the one who said, pick someone's system and duplicate it exactly. And I mentioned your Alex Ryan system and your process, because I had listened to you for years on your podcast. And he said, well, whatever Michael's doing, then do it. If that means you have to scrap everything else and start over, do that. And he was absolutely right. And it's
That was an expensive
really
endeavor for you to do. I mean, to scrap things.
it was, because I don't even want to admit how much money and time I've spent on trying to get this far.
I was impressed how much money you spent from a perspective of wanting to conquer this business. Because most people wouldn't have, well, one, most people couldn't have done that. And secondly, they wouldn't have done that. But you absolutely have some good staying power, which is probably one thing that at some point in your career will get you above what you need to be above at the moment.
And I want to make a reference to something here. Yes, I have the resources, and I've got to the point, as you know, when my partnership arrangement ended up going south. I really come to my stop limit. I just said, I've got to either totally reconfigure this thing and do it exactly the way Michael teaches it, or I just have to shut it down, because I cannot spend any more money on this doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the thing was, as tempted as I've been, because I know you just passed double nickels, but I'm sneaking up on 60. And
my goodness, that's not.
I'm doing this.
Coins too. No, what is that? That's a nickel and a penny. Wow.
No, it's not. No. That's a nickel and a nickel.
I don't know what age it's gonna like. I'm gonna have the third midlife crisis when I turn 60 or something. But
no, because you talked about this on podcast 290, and everybody's listening. If you haven't listened to podcast 290, and forgive me if it's the wrong number, when Michael talks about goals, you need to listen to it.
289.
289. Sorry, 289. Okay.
288.
I was listening to that. I was listening to that podcast, and I texted you afterwards, you might recall. And I said, you asked me this, you're talking about the staying power and my conviction to do this thing. And that's the reason why I've continued, is because I have a why. I have a purpose for doing what I want to do. And I'm absolutely convicted to achieve that, no matter what it takes. So when things went south and I decided to soldier on, I decided to put a little more juice behind it and do it exactly the way you've taught me. We're getting there to where, like I said before, the fruit's about ready to come off the tree.
That's great.
Some of the leads came before the call center, and we're continuing to work on leads that we produced going back 18 months. We're going to touch every single lead. But all the leads that have come through the Alex Ryan system are also, fruit on the tree. And, got one property on the MLS, and I've got 2 more ready to go, and I've got 3 others that I'm working on, and just keep adding to it every day.
I-15 and you got a deal on the telephone?
Yeah, that was fun. It just reminded me, because Jeff was talking about he's driving to go meet a seller. And my VAs who I hired recently, I'm having to go back and reconnect with every single lead that we had in the system before we went to the call center. One of the VAs booked an appointment for me with a guy who had a house that's worth 50 and needs, 5 in repairs, and he was willing to sell it for 15. And I had to be in the car at the time that they booked the appointment. So I wrote down the key information. I called the guy. We negotiated over the phone. I said, I'll send you the contract when I get back home. So that was kind of fun.
It's always a good day when you can make 25,000 or so driving down the road.
I know. I love it. It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Any other wisdom you want to share?
Well, again, I would go back to the point that you made in your podcast on talking about goals. Know what it is that you want. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is my why? If you have a firm vision of what you want to achieve through your efforts, then that will propel you to keep going, even when things don't go right or don't go well.
Can I add something to that statement? Which is
Certainly.
And I hope everybody gets to the point in their life that they'll realize what I'm going to say and what it means for them. We have the why, right? Why is it that we're trying to accomplish this? What the bigger reason behind, just the phrase. I can tell you there's going to be a moment where the why wasn't the why. And it's pretty significant that if you don't have some introspection on why, what really was the why. Because I remember vividly the day that I had too much money. My why was not there anymore. Okay, so I've done it. I've conquered it. I have everything that I wanted. Now what do I do? Now what's my why? And it's an eerie process to go through that, because now you have zero direction. You've conquered everything you wanted to conquer. You've placed yourself in an arena that, now what's life all about? Hopefully you'll experience it. I hope everybody does. But when you're there, you just absolutely have to fight through that one.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, because I've shared that experience. My original why was to be financially in a place where I didn't have to worry about earning a paycheck, and to be able to, travel with my wife, because we both love to travel, and be able to spend time with our family. Well, we have that. We're blessed. We're truly blessed that we have that. But then the question became, okay, now what am I going to do?
Right.
And why am I going to want to do it? So I know exactly what you're saying, and I completely agree.
Yeah, it was an eerie feeling for me, because there wasn't any whys left. And so then I had to go and really find them. What is it that I want to do? Now that I can do anything I want to do, what is it truly that's going to make Michael Quarles satisfied? When it starts turning away from making money, which is kind of cool, which is the experience that I had that I thought was extremely pleasurable, to meaning something and doing something different than besides just making money. Money's important. Let's kid ourselves. For the longest time in my life, I wanted the zero. I had to get to the zero. And when you get to the zero and beyond, then you realize the zero is not that important. Then there has to be something else out there. And for me, I wanted something that was bigger than something I could ever conquer. So I never wanted to wonder what my why was again. And again, you guys won't understand what that means until you arrive. It's a fun day. Eerie day for me anyway. I'm going to go back to Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Quayle,
Yes.
you want to share with us your why?
My why? Yeah, actually. So I actually have a regular job. I work a condensed week. I work 3 days a week, but I work about 18-hour shifts, and I do it out of the area. So I fly away from family, work 3 days, put in about 55 hours, and then come back and have 4 days off. And I've been doing that for over a decade, and it's worked very well for me. But I like to transition into something where I can be at home more. And the specific job that I have is probably, I work in the entertainment industry in LA, and the show that I'm working on is probably going to come to an end in about 3 or 4 years. And I could move into something else, but I think I'd rather pivot and take a complete new direction. So that's kind of my goal. And I've got, 3 years to move in that direction. I'm hoping to do it a little quicker, and although I don't want to give up necessarily my job completely right away, I do have the ability to kind of scale it down. And it's just I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for something new.
Yep. I've always been a burn the boat type of person, which isn't the best for everybody. How does not having to burn your boat affect?
It's a crutch.
I was going to say, how does it affect your drive? Do you feel
it's a crutch? It absolutely is a crutch. I question whether or not having the Alex system is too much of a crutch. It's fantastic to have, a team, a room full of people that can always answer the call, that have done this hundreds and hundreds of times, go through and take those calls. But I wonder if even, in the long term, would I be a better investor if I did that myself? And it's a hard balance between having somebody help you so you can be successful and not relying too much on that system, or not eventually getting to the point where you're wanting to do it yourself. Craig was talking about how he hired somebody so he never had to talk to sellers. And ultimately, he saw that, I believe, as kind of a deficit in his training. So I don't need to, I don't have a lot of people that you talk to are like, they're kind of they've tried everything else. They're like, they're digging in like, I'm absolutely going to make this work. I'm going to either die trying or make this work. And I'm doing this more as kind of a side, and keeping the motivation and really putting forth the effort is something I kind of struggle with, balancing work and family, and now a new venture. I'm doing this because I wanted to have more time, but I'm taking away time from my family by starting down this road. And I realized that ultimately it would lead to more, but my kids just started school for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I'm wanting to be there for them, and it's the challenge. And time is the biggest thing right now. I'm very fortunate as well. Like I live a comfortable life. I'm not struggling. I've got beautiful family, and we're all healthy. And time is the biggest thing that I can work toward. More than making a dollar figure, it's the time that I really want. So I'm hoping to supplement one with the other and work less at the same time. If I could make what I make now and work less hours and spend more time with my family, that would be a win for me.
So that's your why.
That's my why.
Sorry,
it took me a while. I've never really voiced it, so I guess it took me a while to get around to it.
And that's understandable. I mean, it's also very personal, so I appreciate you sharing. My why for the longest time has always been that extra zero. How much more money can I make? When I realized making money wasn't everything, I never really thought about having more time, because I never considered time to be an asset kind of thing, like you would, because you need it for your family and what you want to do. So I turned it to a different direction. It still takes the same amount of time now that I get to do what I want to do. But thank you for sharing.
Of course. Thank you for this new world that you kind of opened up for me.
Yeah, and it's you brought up whether or not the Alex answering the phone was a crutch, and I have two folks in the office that are both sending out direct mail to buy houses independently of the company, which I'm promoting and sponsoring, and one of them is using the Alex Ryan system, and one of them is not, and which I find a great test of whether or not someone should or not. The one that's not using the Alex Ryan system, of course, they're having to do everything themselves, and it's a little bit, it's probably more romantic and more fun. The one that's not doing it themselves, who's using the Alex Ryan system, is just chomping at the bit to go do it themselves, but they realize that's not the highest and most effective use of their, or best use of their time. Coincidentally, and I think it's just a coincidence, the one that's using the Alex and Ryan system actually has more contracts than the other one, and they're doing equal marketing. It's a good split test. Myself, I would always use the Alex and Ryan system because I never want to knock on another door. I mean, if I could avoid stepping back 6 feet and looking up the street and saying, thank you for inviting me out to buy your house today, I will. If I can do that, I will. I like the ability to be able to do it and communicate how to do it. At my time in life, I realize I can do more things, do more of my why, never doing that. So I get it.
Yeah, I should say that I don't, my goal is not to do this long term. Like the reason I'm going out today, like I've never done this before and I want the experience. And then once I have the experience and I feel comfortable with it, much like you, I prefer never to do it again.
Right, yeah. It's too time consuming, and I always look at exponential growth. Anytime that we can give away everything that we do, but yet we still are profitable, then we have exponential growth, and we can create more profit by getting more folks to do what we do. So I like that concept. Also like the water faucet concept that it has. Mr. Connors,
Yes, sir.
what do you want to add? We have like 5 minutes left.
Oh, my goodness.
You don't have to talk for 5 minutes.
Well, I would say that one of the big learnings that I've had in the last 3-4 months is, follow the system. The system works. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. If it works. Just stay the course and follow Michael's coaching, and you will be able to achieve what you set out to achieve. And really, if it's a worthwhile endeavor on your part, then you will reach your goals. Pretty much what I have to offer.
No, both of you have had success in what you're doing. There's some folks that haven't had success. Let's face it, it's not everybody's has a story to tell that's been successful. Some folks still are looking for that. Do either of you have anything to offer them as encouragement? I mean, I can, but being a coach, it could be looked upon as, he's just the cheerleader, and I don't want to sound like a cheerleader. So do you guys have anything to offer the person who hasn't had the success that you've had yet, who's striving for it, who's working towards it, who maybe the success looks invisible to them?
Sure. Absolutely. Sometimes we want things just because we want them. And sometimes we think that maybe we can't achieve what somebody else has achieved, or we can't have what somebody else has. And it's not true, because if somebody else has gone before you and done what you want to do, it's simply a matter of getting your mind set to what Jeff referred to, which is, I'm going to do this no matter what happens. I'm going to do this or die. And one of the reasons why I've gone down 3 or 4 different paths. I think some of my real estate friends look at me like, oh God, what has he done now? Which way is it going now? Kind of thing, because I would hit a dead end and I'd back up and I'd go down a different road, and I would try that. And the reason I did that was because there are too many examples of people succeeding in this business of wholesaling or wholesaling, or whatever you want to refer it to as. And so if they can do it, you can do it. You just simply need to take a system and duplicate it. And if you can stay true to that course, then you will succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what Craig said. Also, there's, different people may have certain weaknesses or certain areas that they need to improve in. Like maybe they're not as good on the phone or in person, or they have that self-doubt. But there are the tools there. I mean, if you're on the one-on-one sessions, and if you've gone through that a few times, you're going to have a good feel for how you are on the phone. You're going to get that feedback from a third party, giving you suggestions on what to work on, what to improve on. If you're having problems with your marketing, you can do all the research and you can submit it, and you guys, your team, Michael, will show you based on the numbers. Yes, I think this is what's going to work, and these are areas that I would not market to for certain reasons. There's help and refinement all along the way, and like Craig said, it absolutely does work. And if it's not working for you, either you're perhaps not giving it enough time, or maybe there's one area that's causing you to fail, and my guess would be most likely it's self-doubt. If you're going to try to do a backflip and halfway through it you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to land this, you're absolutely not going to land it. You have to know the whole way that, like, this is going to work. And it can be intimidating if you've never had it. Michael said something one time, said, until you have somebody sell you a house for 65 cents they know to believe, or they know is worth $1, until somebody actually does that, it's hard to really believe that will ever actually happen. Like, when I talk to family and friends about it, they're like, why would somebody possibly sell you something at a massive discount when they know its true worth? And until it happens, it's easy to think like this will never happen, but it absolutely does. And
I had a great conversation this morning with someone about when they had gotten a contract, and one of their takeaways was that they heard the relief, that sigh of relief from the seller, that exhale of stress. And until we hear it, we don't believe it's there. It can ever be there, because for ourselves, we would never do what someone someone is doing with us, because we would never sell a house for 65 cents or 42 cents or whatever it is. But when we realize it's real, and that it's not about buying a house at 42 cents, it's about buying that relief from somebody. They needed to exhale. There's a lot of good that happens when you realize that we're not taking advantage of people, that we're actually doing something that's good for them. So I like those moments when I get to hear them. Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Anything else before I say goodbye?
I would only add one thing to what we were just saying, and that is, we're talking about, if you've taken action and you haven't had the success you're seeking, that stay true to your course and follow the system. But I would also say to those people like myself, because for a very long time, I spent hundreds of hours listening to dozens of different podcasts, all on the same topic, and I didn't take action. I was afraid to step off the curb because it would commit me to doing something that I was a little bit afraid of doing. Well, have the courage to step off the curb, and if you follow the system, you will prevail, in the long run. So,
absolutely. Anything else, Jeff?
No, I think that he's, again, Craig has a really valid point. I think there's a huge majority of people that put in an enormous amount of time and money and effort and then never take action because they're afraid that they'd rather make no choice than make the wrong choice or the non-optimal choice. Like, they don't want to do it until they know the absolute best way possible. And it's so much better to just move forward and get the experience. And don't worry that you're not 100% optimal in every area. If you wait for that opportunity, you'll never move forward.
Yeah. Done is the new perfect. Absolutely, Totally right on, Jeff. Totally right on.
Yeah, just go through. And that was one thing that I did, is I didn't hesitate at all. I went through, I did my analysis. As soon as I finished my analysis, I sent out my letters, and I'm like, I really am just having blind faith. This guy looks to be legitimate, looks like he's got a big business, looks like he does. He talks a good game. There's a lot of other people here that seem to support him, but I've never met Michael in person, and I've done my due diligence, but, I just went along with it, and it absolutely does work. But if you don't move forward, you're never going to have any success.
Well said.
Yeah. It's like the gym membership and you never go.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks,
you don't know the perfect routine. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.